Hi everybody, welcome to my homestead and welcome to my channel. My name is Jared. In this video, we're going to talk about signs. I've done this video before, but it's been a long time and I think it's worth repeating. So when a sign is given, what does it mean? Is it pointing to something in the future? Is it a sign of something that's happening right now as the sign is happening? Or are signs meant to point your mind back to the past and to remember something and be like, oh yeah, that's right. There was a sign of that, and that way I know of the divinity of that event. Okay. Because when I first started my channel, I think the prevailing view was that signs were for the future. So as we look at this eclipse that's coming up on April 8th, it definitely seems to be a sign. In my mind, it is definitely a sign. All three of these eclipses, 2017, 2023, and now 2024, I believe that they're signs. And so some people expected in 2017 that something would happen at the time of the eclipse, but nothing that we know of did happen. And so there was confusion. And so the prevailing view was like, well, it's because signs point to the future. And what I did is I compiled a list of scriptures on this spreadsheet. This is my spreadsheet called Signs, Past, Present, Future, where I show examples of all three. So number one, if they point to the past, it's the sign already appeared for something in the past and it spiritually benefits me now. So that's the first category. Concurrent, which is the sign appears as something is happening. Or future, the sign appears and points to something happening, or I should say something points to something that is going to happen in the future. Okay, so we're going to go through all these different examples and you'll see what I mean. Before we do, I have finally updated the Flood the Earth challenge. I have not been doing a very good job at that this month. I want to try and update it every day, but it's been crazy this month. We made our trip to Adamondayaman. I had to do stuff here on the homestead. We bought a new riding mower, and there's been a lot of things that have kind of constrained how much time I can put into this, but I'm going to try and do better going forward. So we have some exciting things that happened since the last time that I updated it. There's been one new person that's been baptized, which brings the total number to 41. And for the month of March, it's our first baptism. And then there are 8 reports of people meeting with the missionaries. That's a really big jump. But it's not a surprise because the last time I updated this was on the 7th. So that brings us to a total of 142 since we started this challenge. And for the month of March, 10. And 10 for a month is actually pretty good. It's I'd say it's about average or maybe a little bit above average. So that's really good. And then we have a total of 927 people that have joined the challenge. So we're getting ever closer to the goal of 1,000 people that have joined the challenge. And then we're at 8,367 copies of the Book of Mormon that have been shared. We're trying to get to 10,000. The channel goal is to try to share at least 10 each of us individually. So try and do that. If you've only shared like 1, 2, 3, try and get to 10. And then hopefully this number will go way, way up. It would. If everybody did that, it would. But trust me, it'd be crazy. Okay. So good job, everybody. Oh yeah, and if you're new to this, if you haven't seen this yet because you just subscribed, share a Book of Mormon. Probably the easiest way to do that is to use the Gospel Library app. Go to Scriptures, and at the top you'll see a button to share the Book of Mormon app, and it gives you a link that you can text or email or direct message in social media, or you can post it on your newsfeed. So just do that, and then let me know how many copies you shared. Put it in, let me know in the comments or send me an email and make sure to include #flood. Oh, and by the way, as far as messaging me goes, I turned off messaging for Facebook and Instagram. It's too chaotic for me to try and talk to people through all these different methods. So just email if you're like sending me a message. I mean, you can leave a comment, but the best way to contact me if you're wanting to share like a news story or whatever, it's email. So send me emails. Okay. Uh, so if you've sent me a message on Instagram or Facebook that I have not responded to, then resend that message via email. Okay, so back to this. So let's look at these examples. So the first one that I have is from Exodus verses 6 through 8. Or no, I added on to this. I didn't update it. So it's actually verses 1 through 9. Sorry, I added a couple things to this spreadsheet. And Moses answered and said, "But behold, they will not believe me, nor hearken unto my voice, for they will say, the Lord hath not appeared unto thee. And the Lord said unto him, What is that in thine hand? And he said, A rod. And he said, Cast it on the ground. And he cast it on the ground, and it became a serpent. And Moses fled from before it. And the Lord said unto Moses, Put forth thine hand, and take it by the tail. And he put forth his hand, and caught it, and it became a rod in his hand, that they may believe that the Lord God of their fathers, the God of Abraham, the God of Isaac, and the God of Jacob, hath appeared unto thee. And the Lord said furthermore unto him, Put now thine hand into thy bosom. And he put his hand into his bosom. And when he took it out, behold, his hand was leprous as snow. Gross. And he said, Put thine hand into thy bosom again. And he put his hand into his bosom again, and plucked it out of his bosom. And behold, it was turned again as his other flesh. And it came to pass, and it shall come to pass, if they will not believe thee, neither hearken to the voice of the first sign, that they will believe the voice of the latter sign. And it shall come to pass, if they will not believe also these two signs, neither hearken unto thy voice, that thou shalt take the water of the river, and pour it upon the dry land, and the water which thou takest out of the river shall become blood upon dry land. Okay, so the way that I read this is that these are signs that are concurrent. So if you're there witnessing Moses putting his hand into his bosom and it coming out with being leprous, like that's something that's happening as the sign. You're like witnessing it as the sign is happening, right? It's also something that you could look to the past too. So even though, Jews today were not alive at the time of Moses, or you and I weren't alive at the time of Moses, we can look back to this, and it's a sign that draws our mind back to the fact that Moses was a prophet. Does that make sense? So we look back to the past, and then those that were there present, for them, it was concurrent. Okay, Numbers 26:10. So this is the background. Moses and Eleazar count the Israelites on the plains of Moab near Jericho. The males 20 years old and older. The males 20 years and older, excluding Levites. Total 601,730. Only Caleb and Joshua remain from those numbered at Sinai. And the sons of Eliab, Nemuel, and Dathan in Abiram. This is that Dathan and Abiram, which were famous in the congregation, who strove against Moses and against Aaron in the company of Korah when they strove against the Lord, right? So people arguing with the prophet, not believing the prophet, not following the prophet, criticizing the prophet, condemning him, censoring him, so on and so forth. Verse 10, And the earth opened her mouth and swallowed them up together with Korah when that company died. What time the fire devoured 250 men, and they became a sign. So again, something that those that were there present, it was a sign as they were watching it. And also for future generations, it's a sign to look back at and remember in the past the consequences of not following the prophet, or not that that's going to happen to you, but spiritually, I think that happens to you when you lean to your own understanding, your own wisdom. You don't listen to the Lord's mouthpiece. Okay, Ezekiel 12 verses 1 through 6. Ezekiel makes himself a symbol of the scattering of the people of Judah from Jerusalem. He then prophesies their scattering among the nations. The word of the Lord also came unto me, saying, Son of man, thou dwellest in the midst of a rebellious house, which have eyes to see, and see not, they have ears to hear, and hear not, for they are a rebellious house. Therefore, thou son of man, prepare thee stuff for removing, and remove by day in their sight, and thou shalt remove from remove from thy place to another place in their sight. It may be they will consider, though they be a rebellious house. Then shalt thou bring forth thy stuff by day in their sight, as stuff for removing, and thou shalt go forth at even in their sight, as they that go forth into captivity. Dig thou through the wall in their sight, and carry out thereby. In their sight shalt thou bear it upon thy shoulders, and carry it forth in the twilight. Thou shalt cover thy face, that thou see not the ground, for I have set thee for a sign unto the house of Israel. Say, I am your sign, like as I have done, so shall it be done unto them. They shall remove and go into captivity. So this was something that was pointing to the future, right? And it wasn't magic. It wasn't supernatural. It was explainable. It was one of their contemporaries, but it was a sign of what was going to happen in the future. Okay, Daniel 5, verses 5 and 25 through 30. In the same hour came forth fingers of a man's hand, and wrote over against the candlestick upon the plaster of the wall of the king's palace. And the king saw the part of the hand that wrote. And this is the writing that was written. Many, many tekel upharsin. This is the interpretation of the thing. Mene, God hath numbered thy kingdom and finished it. Tekel, thou art weighed in the balances and art found wanting. Peres, the kingdom is divided and given to the Medes and Persians. Then commanded Belshazzar, and they clothed Daniel with scarlet, and put a chain of gold about his neck, and made a proclamation concerning him, that he should be the third ruler in the kingdom. In that night was Belshazzar, the king of the Chaldeans, slain. Right? This is where you have this transition from the Babylonians and their occupation and the captivity under the Babylonians, in that time coming to an end and transferring to the time of the Persians and Medians, right? So the writing is on the wall. I guess you could look at it a couple different ways. Either you could say that it was something that was concurrent, like you saw the sign and it happened at that same time, or if you want to get technical, you could say, well, it was earlier in the day and appointed to later that day. So, I mean, whatever. It's basically the same thing. Okay, Matthew chapter 2, verses 1 through 2. Now, when Jesus was born in Bethlehem of Judea in the days of Herod the king, behold, there came wise men from the east to Jerusalem, saying, Where is he that is born King of the Jews? For we have seen his star in the east and are come to worship him. So the star appeared, this was a sign in the heavens. It appeared, and it was for something that was happening at that time. Does that make sense? So when we're thinking about the eclipse, that's a sign in the heavens, and it could be something. It could be that something happens at that same time. The difference is, like with the eclipse, we know exactly when it's going to happen. Whereas, they didn't know exactly when Christ was going to be born. So that may be a key difference, right? So because they didn't know when he was going to be born, you have the sign that occurs, and then you're like, oh, okay, now he's here. Whereas the eclipse, we're able to see into the future and know exactly when it's going to happen. So that may make some kind of difference, or it may not. I don't know, but that's something to take note of. Okay, Matthew 24, verse 30. And then shall appear the sign of the Son of Man in heaven, and then shall all the tribes of the earth mourn, and they shall see the Son of Man coming in the clouds of heaven with power and great glory. So here's another example of something that's going to happen in the future. When it does happen, it's going to be a sign not pointing to the future, but a sign to those that are then on the earth as it's happening. Okay, Mark 16, verse 17. And these signs shall follow them that believe. In my name shall they cast out devils. They shall speak with new tongues. So here's one again where if you're present, then the sign is something that's happening right then and there, but it's supposed to be something that validates someone from the past. Like when you're looking to the past, like you're thinking about the apostles and you look back and you're like, oh yeah, they cast out devils and they spoke in new tongues. That was a sign. It's something that I didn't witness. It happened in the past, but it was a sign for those then present and for me in the future. Okay, Luke chapter 2, verse 12. And this shall be a sign unto you. You shall find the babe wrapped in swaddling clothes, lying in a manger. So again, that's something, I guess you could say, maybe you could say past for that because like we're here in the future, but it's more, I don't know. I'm just going to put it as concurrent. It was for those at the time so that they would know what to look for. Once they see the babe wrapped in swaddling clothes, lying in a manger, that was the sign. Here he is. This is the Messiah. Luke 21 verses 25 through 27. And there shall be signs in the sun and in the moon and in the stars, and upon the earth distress of nations with perplexity, the sea and the waves roaring, men's hearts failing them for fear, and looking after those things which are coming on the earth, for the powers of heaven shall be shaken. And then shall they see the Son of Man coming in a cloud with power and great glory. Or in other words, the sign of the Son of Man. So here we have a couple different types of signs that are mentioned. You have signs that are in the heavens, signs having to do with the sun, the moon, the stars. And there's been a lot of that lately, by the way. I try and cover that the best that I can. So those would be signs that some of them would point to the future. The sign of the Son of Man, like we already covered, would be something that's concurrent, happening as the sign is seen. Yeah. All right. 1 Nephi 19, verse 10. And the God of our fathers, who were led out of Egypt, out of bondage, and also were preserved in the wilderness by him, yea, the God of Abraham, and of Isaac, and the God of Jacob, yieldeth himself according to the words of the angel, as a man, into the hands of wicked men, to be lifted up according to the words of Zenock, and to be crucified according to the words of Nahum, and to be buried in a sepulchre according to the words of Zenos, which he spake concerning the 3 days of darkness, which should be a sign given of his death unto those who should inhabit the isles of the sea, more especially given unto those who are of the house of Israel. So again, that is meant to be a sign not pointing to the future, but if you're living in the isles of the sea, you're living in the Americas, somewhere else, you see those 3 days of darkness, and then you know that as that's occurring, that is when Christ is crucified, right? So not pointing to the future, it's something that's happening then as the sign is occurring. 2 Nephi 26, verse 3. And after the Messiah shall come, there shall be signs given unto my people of his birth, and also of his death and resurrection. And great and terrible shall be that day, and great and terrible shall that day be unto the wicked, for they shall perish. And they perish because they cast out the prophets and the saints, and stone them, and slay them. Wherefore the cry of the blood of the saints shall ascend up to God from the ground against them. So again, signs that will take place for those that are not in the land of Jerusalem, those that are far away, so that they can know that, number one, he's been born, and number two, that he died. Okay, Mosiah chapter 3, verse 15. And many signs and wonders and types and shadows showed he unto them concerning his coming. And also holy prophets spake unto them concerning his coming. And yet they hardened their hearts and understood not that the law of Moses availeth nothing except it were through the atonement of his blood. So mentioning different signs and stuff that are meant to point to the future. Helaman 14:3. And behold, this will I give unto you for a sign at the time of his coming. Behold, there shall be great lights in there shall be great lights in heaven, insomuch that in the night before he cometh there shall be no darkness, insomuch that it shall appear unto man as if it was day. All right, so a sign that's happening as the event it's pointing to is happening. 3 Nephi 1:22. And it came to pass that from this time forth, there began to be lyings sent forth among the people by Satan to harden their hearts to the intent that they might not believe in those signs and wonders which they had seen. But notwithstanding these lyings and deceivings, the more part of the people did believe and were converted unto the Lord. So signs pointing to the time when Christ was going to come to them in the flesh after his resurrection. 3 Nephi 2, verse 1. And it came to pass that thus passed away the 95th year also, and the people began to forget those signs and wonders which they had heard, and began to be less and less astonished at a sign or a wonder from heaven, insomuch that they began to be hard in their hearts, and blind in their minds, and began to disbelieve all which they had heard and seen. This is definitely a warning for us. We're living in a time where we can easily do things like this, have podcasts, YouTube channels, blogs, stuff like that, where we can observe these signs together as they're happening and identify them. And true, maybe some of them aren't signs, but we just have to do our best and kind of use the Spirit. But we have such ability now to do this all together and talk about it. And yet there's always going to be those people that don't believe basically anything is a sign, that it has to, they have preconceptions about how things are supposed to look. Or again, like I've said recently, they believe that a sign has to be magic or supernatural or unexplainable, when just by reading the scriptures, there's all these examples of signs that are not necessarily supernatural, like Ezekiel, moving away from Israel and that being a sign to them of their impending expulsion, their scattering among the nations. There was nothing magical about Ezekiel taking his stuff and moving, but it was a sign. Okay, continuing. 3 Nephi verses 8. This is another one I didn't do it with. 3 through 7. And the people began to look with great earnestness for the sign which had been given by the prophet Samuel the Lamanite, yea, for the time that there should be darkness for the space of 3 days over the face of the land. And there began to be great doubtings and disputations among the people, notwithstanding so many signs had been given. And it came to pass in the 34th year, in the first month of the 4th day of the month, there arose a great storm, such an one as never had been known in all the land. And there was also a great and terrible tempest, and there was terrible thunder, insomuch that it did shake the whole earth, as if it was about to divide asunder. And there were exceedingly sharp lightnings, such as never had been known in all the land. So there you have an account of people looking forward to the sign of the 3 days of darkness as related to them by Samuel the Lamanite. And then all of a sudden you started having all these disasters take place, and those were signs of something that was currently happening, right? The death of Christ. Okay, just a few more. These are all from Doctrine and Covenants. The first one is D&C 29, verse 14. But behold, I say unto you that before this great day shall come, the sun shall be darkened, and the moon shall be turned into blood, and the stars shall fall from heaven, and there shall be greater signs in heaven above and in the earth beneath. So pointing to essentially what sounds like the immediate future. Once you see those things, then you know that the second coming is really close. D&C 45, verse 39. And it shall come to pass that he that feareth me shall look forth for the great day of the Lord to come, even for the signs of the coming of the Son of Man. So signs preceding the second coming, pointing to the second coming. Okay, D&C 68, verses 10 through 11. And he that believeth shall be blessed with signs following, even as it is written. And unto you it shall be given to know the signs of the times and the signs of the coming of the Son of Man. Sorry, I know that these are kind of generic, but I wanted to try and make as complete of a list as I could. Okay, just two more. D&C 88 verses 93 to 98. And immediately there shall appear a great sign in heaven, and all people shall see it together. That's the sign of the Son of Man. And another angel shall sound his trump, saying, that great church, the mother of abominations, that made all nations drink of the wine of the wrath of her fornication, that persecuteth the saints of God, that shed their blood, she who sitteth upon many waters and upon the islands of the sea, behold, she is the terrors of the earth. She is bound in bundles, her bands are made strong, no man can loose them. Therefore she is ready to be burned, and he shall sound his trump both long and loud, and all the nations shall hear it. And there shall be silence in heaven for the space of half an hour, and immediately after shall the curtain of heaven be unfolded, as a scroll is unfolded after it is rolled up, and the face of the Lord shall be unveiled. And the saints that are upon the earth who are alive shall be quickened and be caught up to meet him. And they who have slept in their graves shall come forth, for the grave shall be open, and they also shall be caught up to meet him in the midst of the pillar of heaven. I don't need to have this last verse here. I don't want this to be too long. Okay, so let's see, 97. Okay, so you have a couple different things going on here. As far as like the half hour of silence, I have looked into this. I've searched as hard as I possibly could, and it doesn't seem that we know for sure what that half hour of silence is. We don't know if it's the 21 years, if you're doing it according to God's time, and we don't know if it's a literal half hour of silence or if it's just some unspecified period of time, but they're using the language of half hour. We don't know. There's nothing definitive out there that says what it is, but it seems that it's a sign that you could, just like the writing on the wall in Daniel, you could look at it as concurrent or just immediately in the future. You're going to have the quickening and the resurrection after you hear the half hour of silence, or immediately after. So however you want to look at that. Okay, and the last one, D&C 124 verses 97 to 98. Let my servant William Law also receive the keys by which he may ask and receive blessings. Let him be humble before me and be without guile, and he shall receive of my spirit, even the Comforter, which shall manifest unto him the truth of all things, and shall give him in the very hour what he shall say. And these signs shall follow him. He shall heal the sick, he shall cast out devils, and he shall be delivered from those who would administer unto him deadly poison. So again, that's something that you may either witness as he's doing it, or look back at it and know that he was a servant of the Lord. Okay, so there you go. We have examples of all of them. So when we're thinking about this eclipse, is it going to be something that's pointing to the past? Is there going to be something that happens as it's happening, or is it pointing to the future? We don't know, but all three of those are possibilities, and we'll just have to wait and see. Okay, well, that's going to be it for this one. If you haven't already, please make sure to subscribe, like this video if you liked it, leave your thoughts and opinions down in the comments below. Also, make sure to share it, and I'll talk to you guys later.